Here are 5 business stories making headlines in sub-Saharan Africa this week. South Africa's Eskom ramped up scheduled power cuts to stage 6 on Wednesday, its worst blackout level on record, leaving most citizens without power for at least 6 hours a day. The utility said a flurry of breakdowns and delays had caused the escalation in outages. In related news, German industrial group Rheinmetall plans to build its first plant in South Africa, a company executive has said, to produce photovoltaic solar panels. Power cuts have boosted demand for solar power systems, with nearly $128 million worth of PV panels imported in the first 5 months of this year. Mining companies and governments in Africa are calling for stronger trade ties with the United States, amid fears that a new climate law will negatively hit the continent's battery material producing countries. The Inflation Reduction Act incentivizes US car makers to source battery materials domestically or from free trade partners. That would not include, for example, Congo, which produced 74% of the world's mined cobalt last year. The issue is likely to be in focus at next week's US-Africa Leaders Summit in Washington. 7 African stock exchanges, including Nigeria, Kenya and South Africa, launched an integration project in Ivory Coast on Wednesday. The bourses remain distinct markets with no cross-listing of shares, but investors in different countries can now buy shares on other exchanges through a common platform. And finally, Senegalese singer Baaba Maal has said he wants his Blues de Fleuve festival to become the Glastonbury of Africa.
I don't know if it's possible. Maybe. Let's hope.
The star, who lent his vocals to the Black Panther movie soundtracks, launched the popular annual music event in 2005.
The family behind the world's largest luxury group, LVMH, is tightening its grip on its empire. Antoine Arnault, the oldest son of LVMH chairman Bernard Arnault, was on Friday named chief executive of the family's holding company, Christian Dior SE. Christian Dior owns the bulk of the Arnault family's stake in LVMH. The younger Arnault is replacing LVMH veteran Sidney Toledan and stirring speculation about broader succession. He's one of Arnault's 5 children, all of whom hold senior positions in LVMH, the group behind fashion houses Louis Vuitton and Christian Dior, as well as labels from champagne to 5-star hotels. Arnault, who is married to Russian supermodel Natalia Vodianova, oversaw LVMH's communications and environmental issues. For a decade, he headed high-end label Berluti, known for expensive buffed leather shoes and bespoke tailoring for men. His father, Bernard, has not publicly named a successor. According to Forbes, Bernard Arnault briefly took over the title of the world's richest man earlier this year, edging out Elon Musk before slipping back to the number 2 spot. It was the first time a person outside tech landed at the top spot in 9 years.
Wall Street ended lower on Friday as investors assessed more data on inflation and awaited a 50 basis point rate hike by the Federal Reserve next week. The Dow shed 0.9%, while the S&P and Nasdaq each lost nearly 0.75%. U.S. producer prices rose slightly more than expected in November amid a jump in the costs of services, but the trend is moderating, with annual inflation posting its smallest increase in 1.5 years. Paul Kim is CEO and co-founder of Simplify ETFs.
I think at this point, inflation is not some scary outlier. We have a fairly good grasp of the fact that it's hot. It's been running hot. It's still likely to run hot for a while, but that some of the biggest drivers that made it run hot is starting to slow down and cool down. So I think the sort of fear factor is gone, and you see that in the levels of volatility coming in and just the activity and volumes in the market coming down.
Consumer prices data for November, due Tuesday, will provide fresh clues on the central bank's monetary tightening plans, which it will announce at its policy meeting next week. As for individual movers, Lululemon Athletica tumbled almost 13% after the Canadian athletic apparel maker forecast lower than expected holiday quarter revenue and profit. Netflix gained 3.1% after Wells Fargo upgraded the video streaming giant to overweight from equal weight. And Boeing climbed 0.3% after Reuters reported the plane maker plans to announce a deal with United Airlines for orders of the 787 Dreamliner next week. Wall Street's main indexes have fallen this week after logging 2 straight weekly gains. Weighing heavily on investors are fears of a potential recession next year due to extended central bank rate hikes.
Twitter will roll out new controls for ad placements as soon as next week. Companies will be able to prevent their ads from appearing next to tweets containing certain keywords. That is according to an email on Thursday from the social network to advertisers. The controls are part of Twitter's effort to lure companies back. Many pulled ads off the platform after it was purchased in October by billionaire Elon Musk. This was amid reports that hate speech had risen since the acquisition and also the reinstatement of several suspended accounts. Twitter earns nearly 90% of its revenue from selling digital ads, with Musk reporting a massive drop in revenue. The Reuters source says Twitter was also considering bringing third-party content moderators in-house. However, the network's new head of trust and safety, Ella Irwin, had previously told Reuters it would lean more heavily on automated moderation. The email to advertisers confirmed that a new version of subscription service Twitter Blue would launch on Friday.
If you're looking to bring home a fresh Christmas tree this year, prepare to pay a little more. That's because, like just about everything else, costs for farmers have gone up.
Fertilizer prices going up 350%. Fuel prices up 500% for off-road diesel. Labor's going up. Minimum wage increases, everything is relative.
John Wyckoff runs the Wyckoff Christmas Tree Farm with his wife Leslie in New Jersey. On 170 acres, there are roughly 70,000 trees growing. And this year, it's been one challenge after another. The season saw a slow start due to rain, and then costs for everything kept climbing. The Wyckoffs aren't alone in facing those pressures. A recent survey of U.S. wholesale producers and distributors by the Real Christmas Tree Board found by a wide margin prices are set to go up. Marcia Gray is the group's executive director.
They told us 71%, the largest range, 71% about they were going to increase their wholesale price from 5 to 15%, somewhere in that window.
Wyckoff's rising input costs mean he too will have to raise prices. That means some families will spend more for a tree, leaving less for the stuff meant to go under it. And that's tough for John, who prides himself on his product.
We've supplied trees to the White House. We've supplied trees to the Vice President's residence. And, we really strive to put out the best possible product we can.
Still, even with a bump in cost,
I bought 3 trees today, 1 for my son's house and 2 for my own.
Some customers are undeterred.